Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another QFloors webinar. Today we'll be talking about managing credit card accounts. Remember that if you are participating in the webinar and you're dialed into the phone number, you have a little hand button on the GoToWebinar toolbar. You can click that. Deborah here will see that you have raised your hand. We can open your audio connection and ask your question, and we'll discuss it and talk about it. You can also do that if you are participating with the in the audio with a headset and speakers, maybe a microphone headset plugged into your computer, USB port, something like that. If not, and you have speakers and you're listening, and you want to ask a question, there's a part on the toolbar where you can type in a question. And Deborah will see that, and either she'll reply or we'll read it out loud here and answer it. Managing credit cards. So this is if you have a company credit card. You have a Visa card, a MasterCard, American Express. You have some card that's a company card, and how do you manage that? There is an application note, a printed document that you can download from our website that goes through these steps. And I noticed this morning there's one minor change that I need to make on the very last sentence of that document. I'll make that and get that posted later today. And I'll point that out when we get to it. If you have a credit card, but it's a personal credit card, and you're using it to make purchases in the company, I'll touch on that a little bit today, but just want to point out that that's kind of the exception to the rule. This is if you have a company card. The process is really the same. The concepts are really the same if you're using a personal card. There's just some minor things you've got to do differently. There are two ways to manage a credit card in QFloors. In the application note, there's one paragraph in the entire document that talks about this first way that I'm going to explain here. There's three criteria that you can go through. The first part of the document, the first paragraph, that help you decide which method you need to do. So if you carry a monthly balance on the card, or if you pay flooring vendors with the card on a regular basis, I want to emphasize that, on a regular basis, or if you want to reconcile the account like you would a checking account, then you would use this application note and the bulk of today's webinar to manage that card. If you are paying the card off every month, or if you're not paying flooring vendors very frequently with the card, and when I say flooring vendors, some of you sell appliances or beds and frames and mattresses or furniture and things of that nature, that would be the same thing. If you're paying your vendors, those types of vendors, regularly with the card, or not. So if you're not carrying a monthly balance, if you're not paying your vendors with the card regularly, if you don't really need to reconcile the credit card account like you would a checking account, then you don't need to do this document, this application note, or the rest of the steps. The way that you manage your credit card in that case is, one, you don't need a credit card account set up in your chart of accounts, but you do need a vendor. So you would have a vendor in here. I don't think I have, we do. We've got Chase, Visa. I've got them in here twice, two different account numbers. And so I need to make sure you have your vendor listed in there. And when you receive the statement in the mail, you'll create a bill for that. And what's the statement date? There usually isn't an invoice number. I could probably tell looking at the list of vendors and invoice numbers, Chase, Visa, August 31st. That's my August statement. You could type anything there you wanted, any custom number to further label or identify the bill. And when's the due date? And then you can select your location per line and your profit center per line. I don't have profit center set up in here in this demo. And then your account. So you'll go through the statement and you can add things together on a calculator and lump them together in one line. Maybe we had went to a restaurant or bought a meal for everyone in the office every Saturday of the month. And so you can lump it all together, or you can do separate lines one by one for each purchase. And I don't remember what my account is called here. Gas, oil changes, things like that for the vehicles. You could have separate accounts set up for various expenses. And you just fill out the QFloors bill so that the ending balance on the bill, the total on the bill, matches the ending balance on the statement. That would include any sort of fees and so forth. Any interest. Now, if you're paying the card off monthly, then there probably isn't interest, unless certain cards might, but have an interest expense account. And then you save the bill and you pay it just like any other bill. So that's the simple method. But again, that's if you are paying the card off monthly. If you're not using the card to pay your flooring vendors very frequently, if you don't really want to or need to reconcile the credit card account like you do a checking account, then this is the method. Now, what if you are carrying a balance from month to month and you are paying your vendors regularly? Sorry, I need to backtrack. What if you do pay a vendor irregularly, infrequently? And you want to do this method because it's easier, it's quicker. The other method is not difficult or that much more time-consuming, just a few extra steps. But you might pay a vendor with the card. Well, when you get that vendor's invoice in the mail, let's just say maybe this one here, and you enter that invoice, and it has its due date and its invoice number, and you want to track that. You want to enter that bill in as normal. Yes, we have that invoice. It's entered. Have we paid it or not paid it? We have the inventory linked up on that bill. But we're not managing the credit card account over here, and we're not going to pay it from here. I think it's that one there. Yeah. So we need to show that this has been paid with the card, and we also need our bill here to have the right total so we can just make one payment to the credit card company. So what you'll have to do is add a line to this bill to kind of reverse the 3,200 and add a line to this bill to add the 3,200. So if it were me, I would use this suspense account, or you might have a clearing account, something like that. And you'll save that, and you want to delete this payment also, because we're not going to go pay that in the checkbook screen. You close it, it's now a completed bill, you save it one more time. That opens a payment window again, but don't save a new payment. If you do, it's just this thing here again, you're not going to pay it. So we'll delete that. So when you close, it's a completed bill. It shows a 0. It's a little bit confusing, I suppose, if you look at and you see you have a SHA where the bill total was 0. But but you're not paying it through here. You're going to pay it here. You'll add a positive line so that your total matches the statement. Remember that that suspense account or your clearing account, whatever you're calling it, it's typically going to be a current asset or liability, usually a liability or other liability, and it should always end up with a zero balance. We have a positive amount posted to suspense here. We should have a negative, one or more negative lines posted somewhere else that equals the same amount so that that account ends up at zero. Then in your checking account, I've got a handful of payments there for Chase Visa. That's because I didn't edit this payment here, or part of my problem. I had saved the bill earlier, changed the bill, so I have to change the payment. I'm sure some of you were pointing that out to me. So I've obviously got some other things going with some other Chase Visas. I want to get rid of all those. I'm just going to click all of them off together. To eliminate confusion down the road here. And we'll just save. And normally you'd click yes to print out your checks, or you'd make them non-check items, right? If you did these, paid these online, they're non-check items. Okay, so that's the quick and easy method. Really works well if you are paying off the entire balance of the card every month. So now the other method, managing the credit card account in the checkbook screen. And so one thing to keep in mind about doing that is that that would be an overdrawn account. It would be an account in here with a negative balance. It's the same as if we had paid too much out of the checking account. We'd written more checks than we had money for, and you'd have a negative balance. You owe that money back. Same thing with a credit card. It's an account where you owe the money somewhere else. It'll have a negative balance, unless, of course, you've overpaid the credit card, sent them too much money, or received a credit or something. So first we need an account listed down here. Now when you first install QFloors, there is a credit card account listed in your chart of accounts. That'll be down at the bottom of the list here. It has a credit card category. Any account with a credit card category or a bank category will show up in the checkbook screen as one of your accounts to select down here at the bottom. So we can rename this if you'd like. But the last few digits of the card number if you want. And okay, so now our account is renamed. Doesn't show the full renaming there. There are, let's see, you'll also need a vendor, sorry. You will also need the vendor in here. Let's add one in. With your, I don't know that I would put the entire account number in here. You could, of course, but let's see. You might do this, actually. I am going to recommend this on that account. The only time you'll really use this vendor is to record purchases. You'll input a statement using that vendor, but you're not going to really make a payment to that vendor through this method. I may need to retract that. I'm sorry. You will select that vendor over in the check. Never mind. We're good. Deborah's looking at me like I'm confused, and I am. So we have our vendor account. We have our bank account. The overview is that you'll have vendor invoices from Shaw, from Ohio Valley, from Mohawk, wherever you're buying your materials, and you'll input those into QFloors just like you've always input those, just like before. You'll also have other purchases, and those you can record in QFloors two different ways. One is to treat every single receipt as a bill. You had the company card with the company vehicle at the gas station, and you needed gasoline, and you stood there and put gasoline in it. They billed you right on the spot, and you paid them right on the spot with that account. So over in the checkbook screen here, in this particular account, this is the account that needs to show that it had a purchase. So you could input, just like your Mohawk or any other vendor, you could create a bill for Chevron or gas station, whatever you put there for the purchase, and then come over to the checkbook screen and pay that bill with this account to show that you had a purchase. So if we took one of these, say we paid this vendor, we switched to our credit card account, we had called Leggett and Platt, called your vendor or faxed over a form or whatever it takes, and you paid them with the card, non-check item. Remember, with non-check item selected, the check number will be zeros, or you can change it up here and put any sort of reference number. Make sure you press enter if you want or need to. And there we show a purchase. So your normal vendors, your flooring, cabinets, appliances, whatever you're paying for, items that you are going to turn around and resell. If you're paying them, you enter the bill and you pay that bill through the credit card account. The other purchases, you could enter the bill for gasoline, for pizza, for whatever it is, enter the bill that represents a receipt, and then come over here and pay it. And that'd be a lot of bills. If you use a card a lot, you have a lot of bills. So that's one way of doing it. Another way, and this is probably the most common way, and it's probably the easier way, is when you receive the statement in the mail, you create a bill for purchases, and in here you'll list just like before on that other bill, you'll list out you can group them together, or you can line by line. All of the expenses on that statement except for the other vendors where the bill is already in QFloors and already paid in that account. I didn't pay that Mohawk one, but okay. So you list out all of the purchases, all of the items on the statement, any interest, anything else, except for those inventory purchases that are already itemized on other bills. And we'll save that bill, we'll save the payment and close it, and when we come over here and refresh, we see there's that statement bill. What account paid for that lump sum of 300 or whatever dollar amount purchases? We could have entered them one by one. Here we've lumped them together. The Amex account paid for all of those. So we're going to show that account. So now this is our credit card account balance. We haven't paid American Express. We haven't paid the card company, the credit card company. All we've done so far is record the individual purchases from our various vendors, and we created one bill to record the group of other purchases and showed they're paid in this particular account. Any comments or questions about that so far? That seems to be the most difficult part for some people to grasp or get their minds wrapped around that. Okay. When you want to make the payment to the credit card company, if you go online and do it online, or if you're going to print them a check, either way, you go to the the checking account, because we're paying from this account. Internally, let me say that differently. Externally, out in the real world, you'll go to their website and make a payment online, or you'll print a check, handwrite a check, whatever. You'll send a check in the mail. It goes to the credit card company. They process it, and your credit card account shows a payment. It goes through your banking system, and your bank account shows a check that cleared. Internally here, all we're doing is moving money from one account here to the other account. And that's done with that quick check in QFloors to do a funds transfer. The quick check is where you click new and fill in these blanks here and save it. If you're doing it online, it's a non-check item. If you're going to actually print a check, then you'll leave this box unchecked so that it'll use this check number. Remember that you start in your bank account for this part. You can change the date if necessary. Here's where you'll select okay, this is a slight issue in the software. Not necessarily a bug, but it's just how it works. I added a vendor earlier. And it's not showing up in here. So we're going to close and reopen QFloors. So checking account, click new, non-check item or otherwise, and there they are. And you can put in the amount. So remember, this method is if we're not paying the card off monthly. Well, you could be. Maybe we're going to pay him the entire $682 or whatever the statement balance is. Maybe by the time you've received the statement, the account balance here with other purchases might be $2,000 or $3,000, but the statement is still just a $1,682 or whatever it is. So we're going to pay him some funds, whatever the statement balance is. There's probably no invoice number. If you're actually printing a check, the account number will show in the memo line here, and I probably wouldn't want the entire credit card account number showing in the memo on a printed check. So be careful about that in your vendor setup. So any memo you want, and then in here, where normally with a quick check you would select rent or utilities or whatever it is the purchase is for. In this particular case, you need to select the other account that's in the checkbook screen. Where am I transferring the funds to? I'm transferring it to this American Express card. So we're coming from Bank of America, pay to the order of vendor name, transfer to this internal account. Save. So in your checking account, you see the payment. It'll have either a check number, or in this case it's a transfer because I had the non-check item selected. If we switch to the credit card account, we see the other side of that transfer where we made a payment. So the negatives in here, just like in a checkbook, a checking account, the negatives are payments paid out and the positives are money paid into that account. We still have a negative balance. It's overdrawn as far as a checkbook screen goes. We still owe money. Reconciling the account. On that statement that you already have, you'll list the statement date and the beginning and ending balances. Now I've got to put this at a later date because all of my transactions are dated today. Beginning and ending balances. This is the part that I'm missing on the application note. You need to type these in as negative numbers. Now I don't have numbers that are actually going to balance out here. I'm just going to put some numbers. And then you'll check off the items that cleared on that statement. One of them is the lump sum of all of the purchases that are non-inventory. Or if you did it the other way, you would have a lot of boxes to check, a lot of items, if you use a card a lot anyway, for every little receipt, every purchase. Now this difference should be 0. I'm going to trick it, make it be 0. Should end up as 0. And then you would save it. Let me mention here at this point, if you have a personal credit card that you're using in the company, what's technically going on is the person is loaning money to the business. That's the technicality behind it. So you could set up the card name, or you could set up an account called Loan from Joe Owner, whoever it is, and use it that way. And you don't want to record the personal purchases that might be on that card. You don't want those recorded in your business. You'd record only the business purchases, and when you do this reconciliation, you would need to change your beginning and ending balances to be minus any personal purchases. So it's a little bit difficult that way, but it's doable and there are advantages to it. So just keep in mind, if it's a personal card, the minor changes that I mentioned earlier are simply that you're taking the personal purchases out before doing the reconciliation. You don't put those in here at all. I would probably print that, normally print it, and there you're done. No questions so far? Okay, we are done. This is a really short one today. We don't have any webinars posted on our website for the upcoming weeks, but we are putting together a schedule of those. Hopefully you have that done today. Okay, once again, we appreciate you being here today and participating in the webinar. If you do have questions later on, we'll be here. Call us or send us an email. Thank you.